Well, Christmas is just 10 days away, and as you get your gift list together, you may be thinking of the important people in your life that fall out of the family, friend, or colleague zone. We're talking about the babysitter, the cleaning person, the nail technician, and what to tip those people. Joining us this morning is Kristin Myers. She's the editor-in-chief of The Balance. It's a site that focuses on helping you take the reins of your personal finance. Good morning. How are you?
Good morning. I'm great. How are you?
I'm fantastic because I love talking to you because you empower the person who is trying to make their dollar stretch a little bit further. And, you know, we've been talking on this show about inflation, how it has affected everything from gas to groceries to Christmas. So what have you been seeing? How is this really affecting this holiday season?
Yeah, well, unfortunately, rising prices right now are honestly the real Grinch when it comes to this holiday season. At The Balance, we did a study just to see how much more expensive Christmas is going to be this year than last year. And we found 17% more than Christmas in 2019 and about 4% more than Christmas last year, just for the items that we analyzed. So just very quickly, Marysol, some of those holiday favorite items like a Christmas tree going to cost you 26% more this year than last year. And eggnog, I personally don't like it. I think it's gross, but I know a lot of people do. 27% more expensive. And as you can see there, some popular items like Levi jeans up about 45%. So that shopping list is going to be expensive this year.
That Telfar bag, if you can get your hand on it, is even going to be more expensive. My Christmas tree, I couldn't believe it. The tiniest Christmas tree ever. I paid $50 more than I wanted to. And I remind her every time I walk past her, you were expensive this year, so you better last until January 7th.
Hopefully nice and full and tall.
Right, exactly. Okay, so when it comes to the holiday season, we talk about the people who make our lives easier. You know, I was thinking about even the guy who picks up my garbage for folks who live in the city. Maybe it's a doorman. Maybe it's the person who walks your dog or your babysitter. Should we tip for the holidays?
In a word, yes. If you can afford it, you should definitely consider giving something, as you put it, to those people that make our lives a little bit easier. So many workers have really, put their lives and their health at risk so that they can continue to open our doors or color our hair or teach our children. And, the holiday is a really nice time to show a little bit of that appreciation and to give back to them monetarily or otherwise. So if you can do it, I definitely recommend tipping for the holiday season.
I could not agree with you because it takes a village to live. I know for some of us moms, it really does take a village to have professional lives, our lives at home. But if you could clarify for us, who could be on this list? I know we mentioned a babysitter. That's a big one. Who else should we consider tipping?
Really anyone can really be on your nice list this year when it comes to holiday tipping. But I like to just think of folks that you interact with on a regular basis, but perhaps you don't necessarily tip normally. So think of, the super in your building or your doorman or your concierge, perhaps a teacher or an instructor if your child is in soccer or ballet, for example. But even folks that you interact with only on a one-time basis, like a flight attendant, perhaps if you're traveling over this holiday season, they appreciate getting a little bit of a gift. And it doesn't have to be huge. Give your flight attendant a $5 Starbucks gift card. I promise you they will appreciate it. And you might get bumped up. Who knows? One hand washes the other. So it's always good for everyone.
I will take a bump up to business class if it means, a $5 gift card. But that begs the question, so how much should we tip? Is there any hard, fast rules? Is it 20%? Is it 15%? Is it a gas card, a coffee card?
There's no hard and fast rule. It really is up to your discretion and perhaps even the type of relationship that you have with that person. If you perhaps complain a lot to your super or you need a lot of assistance, you might want to consider giving them a little bit more. But just for a guidepost, I like to think 2 to 5%, especially here in New York, of your monthly rent. So if you're paying $2,500 a month on your apartment, that's about $50 to $125 per person inside your building. You can give more, and if you don't have it, you can always give less.
Well, that leads to my next question. This year has been particularly tough for a lot of folks. If people just simply don't have the cash to tip, what's a good recommendation for them?
Yeah, there's always other options. You know, you don't have to slide $500 inside of a card and pass it to your doorman to make them feel appreciated. So perhaps consider giving them, sweet treats,
Right.
baking some cookies at home or bread. That was huge in the pandemic. Some people really enjoyed that. Give them a bottle of wine or perhaps giving them a gift card to Amazon, for a
Yeah.
lower amount. All of those things will make people feel appreciated. The goal here is really to say, thank you
Right.
to everyone that makes our lives easier, and to show them really, especially in this holiday season, especially in this pandemic, that we appreciate them.
I want to bring in the team because we have some very curious co-hosts, John Muller, Hazel Sanchez. What are your questions, fellas?
Well, I just have a quick question because during the entire year, I tip the parking attendant, the guy that parks our car, and people that come in and help deliver the packages from the concierge desk up to our apartment. If you're constantly tipping them all year round, how much do you tip them in the holidays then?
Well, if you're tipping constantly, I would say that their tip could definitely be something less and might be perhaps just a little bit extra than the tip that you might give normally. So if you're giving $5, for example, to that parking attendant when they park your car, perhaps consider giving them 10 or maybe 15. You don't have to go crazy with it. I think the holiday tipping, should really be focused in on some of those folks that don't necessarily get that little bit of thank you every time they help you out.
Oh, okay. Great.
All right, Kristin, here's one for you. You come from an apartment building, you got 6 doormen. You got the superintendent. Does the superintendent get more than the doorman?
John, you're going to be broke.
Yeah, right. I know. No kidding, right? And then, what if the doorman you almost never bump into because his schedule just doesn't sync up, and then you have the person you see all the time? Do they get the same amount?
Actually, a good question.
That is a very good question. And I mean, I'm on Long Island now, but I lived in New York for several years until the pandemic forced me to somewhere with a yard. And I was experiencing that same sort of thing every single holiday. Do you tip the same amount for everyone? Now, I will say that if you have a bit of a personal relationship, interact with some folks a little bit more than others, you might want to consider giving them a little bit more. But pro tip for anyone living in a New York City apartment, consider a building pool for holiday tips. Just pool everyone's money among all of the renters, and then you can start handing out envelopes, and chances are those folks will actually get a little bit more than they would have just relying on some of those individual tips from some generous folks inside the building.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
That's a good idea. You guys good?
Yeah, good.
You ready?
Good.
You're armed with your
good.
stuff?
Yep.
Yes.
When all else fails, I bake cookies. I bake cookies and I smile.
Everyone likes cookies. I'll take some too.
Okay,
Yeah, me
fine.
too.
Okay, in the mail. Kristin, thank you so much for joining us,
Of
and have a
course.
very Merry Christmas.
You as well.
Absolutely. For tips on personal finance all year long, check out thebalance.com.